Every guitar player reaches the dreaded intermediate plateau at some point in their progression. And that plateau looks a little bit different for everybody, but most of the time it's like this. You can learn most songs and even solos by watching tutorials, looking at tabs. You can kind of mess around, jam a little bit on your own or maybe with a buddy, and maybe you can even solo for yourself a little bit. But you have your usual boxes that you gravitate towards, that you're kind of stuck in, right? Like if I said, hey, let's play in the key of A minor, take a solo, maybe you'll come up to this 5th fret on the low E string, right? Just minor pentatonic scale all day. Maybe you'll do this. Maybe for some of you, your box is down here, like open A minor zone. Maybe you can do some embellishments here and there, whatever it is. But beyond that, you don't really know where else to go, and these are just things that you have baked into your memory. Now, just like all of you, I used to be stuck in this zone as well. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 overarching things that I wish I knew when I was stuck that would have helped me break free 100 times quicker than I actually did. And if you want to get a sense of my style, how I play, all that, subscribe to me here on YouTube, check out my Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. But let's dive in. So the first thing that I really wish I knew, and this one applies to human nature as a whole, but you set your own ceiling. I know that sounds like that cheesy motivational shit, but whether you know it or not, you're actually limiting yourself subconsciously. Every time you see or hear one of your favorite players shredding, or even on Instagram, someone way better than you, there's a couple ways you can react to that. One is you get discouraged. You're like, shit, I'm never gonna be able to play like that. The second one is also kind of a level of discouragement, but it's more like, oh, that person's special, they were born with it. I'm just not cut out for that. But the underlying issue is the same, right? It's like, I'm never going to get there. Now, the way that you need to perceive it is like this. That person is a real life example of what's possible for you. I assume when you're watching those videos, it's another human being playing that guitar. You are a human being. So you know it's possible for a human being to get to that level. That should inspire you to set your own bar a lot higher than you do right now. And think about it this way. For every person that you see like that, there's someone who's doing something even crazier, even better, pushing the limits even more. So every time you see something like that, you should think, oh shit, that's possible. That means what might be possible for me is even well beyond what they're even doing. So just a mindset thing, right? Think about like David Blaine. I love that guy. I'm not talking about his like magic tricks, like his general magic tricks, but I'm talking about the things that he trains his body to do, to be capable of. How he can like swallow gasoline, hold it in his stomach, and then spit it back out for that like flamethrower effect sort of thing. Or he houses frogs in his stomach, or holds his breath for, you know, an absurd amount of time in the middle of Times Square. Those things, as crazy and ridiculous as they are, it's just further proof that humans are capable of much more than we think. I've always been inspired by really great guitar players, but I used to just look at those people and kind of wish I did that or hope that one day I could do that, as opposed to being like, no, I know that it's possible to get to your level. I just need to figure out the path on how to get there. And lo and behold, once I started thinking that way, I started to reach their level. And so once I started diving into the world of like Alan Holdsworth and Guthrie Govan and all these crazy guitar players, the first time I started checking them out, I was like, oh, these guys are freaks of nature. Like this is crazy. There's no way I'm ever going to reach this level. But you can look at it from a much more analytical standpoint and be like, well, what is it they're actually doing and how can I get there? And we'll get into that a little bit later, like analyzation and stuff. But if you can just approach it with that mindset, you'll get so much further in your progression. A perfect example of this is when I was practicing alternate picking. My alternate picking used to absolutely suck. And I started practicing it more and more. And I remember lowering the bar for myself, thinking like, okay, Guthrie Govan, that guy can pick faster than anyone I've ever seen. So I'm not going to be able to really ever do that. But once I got better and better at alternate picking, I was like, hold on, why am I setting the bar here? I should approach this as if I know it's actually possible to get to a point like Guthrie Govan is in terms of technicality and ability. And as soon as I started thinking that way, even though I clearly have not reached that level remotely, yet at least, I've still gotten so much further in my skill development than I ever thought I would. Now, another way that we self-impose this ceiling that's a little bit harder to recognize is that we all have egos. Whether you think so or not, like humans are all very prideful. And for me, this was a huge thing that stunted my growth. I remember going to music school and having a little bit of a hot head, not just about the way I could play, but also this sense of pride of like, oh yeah, I can figure this stuff out on my own. A lot of people have that. And it's this weird thing, like you want to be able to say that you got here on your own without anyone's help. But the issue with that is you are not getting anywhere close to your full potential if you go about it on your own. That's just fact. As soon as I sucked it up and had people help me through it, found mentors who were really, really good, really knew their shit, and who had been in my shoes and could show me a path and a system to implement to get better super efficiently, that's when everything changed for me. And I remember being in music school and having kind of this hot head. I would show up to these things called juries, which is when you would play in front of the faculty as kind of like a performance review sort of thing. And I got this note from one of the professors that was like, hey man, you should check out your eighth notes. They're uneven. And my first response, instead of being like, okay, 100%, I'm going to go look and check out my eighth notes, was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? My eighth notes are fine. I don't need any help on this. But over time, I started to recognize what he was saying in like old recordings of myself. And every time I picked up the guitar, I started to become more aware of it. And it was kind of the slap in the face of like, oh shit. First of all, the fact that this is something I never even realized was happening on my own says a lot about what I could have been practicing and fixing and getting better at all these years. But also, like, what's my goal here? Is it to be a mediocre guitarist and say, oh yeah, I got to this level on my own? And everyone's like, great. Or is it to be the best I possibly can and just not be able to have those bragging rights that no one cares about anyway? Oh yeah, I did this on my own, right? It's like, no, I know I got help to get here, but I still got here. Personally, I would rather be the greatest guitarist I could possibly be with help than just someone who never reaches their full potential because they went about it on their own. Now, the second thing I really wish I knew, and this is a huge misconception with a lot of guitar players, is that it's all only about time. Now, the best way to think of this is using the gym analogy. Let's compare two different people, okay? One guy goes to the gym for 4 hours every single day. Another guy goes to the gym for 30 minutes every single day. Who do you think sees better progress and gets stronger? If you think the 4 hours guy, you could be right, but you could be wrong. If you think the 30 minutes guy, you could be right, you could be wrong too. Because there's this huge missing variable here. It's like, what are these people actually doing when they get to the gym? What if I told you the guy who was there for 4 hours was spending 3 hours and 50 minutes of that time on his phone, hanging out by the water fountain, chatting with friends? And what if I told you that the guy that was there for 30 minutes spent every single minute lifting some serious weight, following a structured program, doing the exact things that person needs to be doing to see the most efficient strength gains? Now, obviously, the person with 30 minutes is going to see way more efficient, better progress than the person with 4 hours every day. So I think the analogy is pretty obvious, but as applied to guitar, it's not about how much time you're practicing. It's about what are you actually doing with that time. And yes, obviously, if you're spending more time each day doing the right things that you need to be doing to see the most efficient results, you're going to see probably more efficient results than someone who has less time doing the same things. But there's so many variables that affect this in real life. If I'm sitting down for 4 hours with the guitar in my hands, there's no way that all that time is efficient, good, solid practice time. Now, if I can sit down with just 20 to 30 minutes, I know that my practice is going to be way more intentional and efficient with that time because it's easier for me to focus in shorter periods of time. In addition to that, there's kind of a point of diminishing returns, just like there is at the gym. It's not the same exact thing as the gym where it's like you got to rest 24 to 48 hours to let your muscles recover. It's not like if you do something new on guitar, you got to wait then a day or two to do it again. But there is still a threshold. I've found that when you split it up in shorter time segments of like 30 to 60 minute practice sessions, it's a lot easier to digest new information and to learn more efficiently. Now, the last thing I'll say here that used to happen with me all the time and happens with a lot of people that I've talked to and a lot of people that I've taught is you wait for the perfect moment, for the perfect time. And that perfect time never comes because we live in the real world. Most of you guys, you're always going to be busy. The question is not, do you have the time? It's, are you willing to make time? Make it a priority. If you come home after a long day at work and you have like 20 to 30 minutes of downtime before it's time to make dinner, you could look at that time and be like, well, I don't have a full hour. I'd like to be able to really sit down and, go through this stuff in depth and take the full hour. So I'm just not going to pick up the guitar. Then where does that leave you? You're looking for perfect circumstances, right? That's never going to happen. So you could take that same time and be like, all right, well, yes, I don't have the full hour. And yes, I would like to be able to sit down for a full hour and do this, this, and that, but I have to adjust because it's just the reality of life. And if I do truly want to see progress here, here, I have to accept that and make the necessary adjustments. Maybe I split it up a different way, or I just focus on one main thing to get done for the day instead of 2 to 3 things. We all have time. Just make it a habit, make it a part of your day, and fill that time with the right things. Now, you may be thinking, well, how do I know what to practice? This leads me to my next thing. Now, obviously, the best way to do this is to have a mentor or someone who's been in your shoes who can guide you through the steps you need to take, because it has to be personalized. You have a different brain than everyone else watching this video. You perceive things differently than everyone else, and you need someone to meet you at that level and help you understand it for yourself. But overall, this takes us to the third thing that I really wish I knew when I was stuck in this intermediate plateau, and that is that it's not about memorization. It's about connections and understanding. As you know, everything in music is so deeply connected, and we need to be able to understand those connections in order to truly break free of our boxes and what we're tired of just playing over and over again. It's like any language. If you're fluent in a language, you can actually express what you want to express. If you only know some choice phrases here and there and you don't really understand what you're even saying most of the time, you have such a limited amount of things that you can actually say that you won't be able to express what you really want. And think about it this way, there are only 12 notes in traditional Western music, so this shouldn't be that hard, but it just is. On the guitar, you have like 3 to 4 different places where you can play the same exact note in the same octave. So it's a very shape-oriented instrument, and as guitar players, people tend to fall into this pattern of just memorizing the shapes, memorizing scales, memorizing chords, memorizing songs, licks, whatever it is. But if you can actually dive into the why, like why am I playing this note here? Why does this sound good here? Or why do I not like the sound of this here? And why am I drawn to this song? What is it specifically about this song that I like? Why do I like this section? Why do I like this chord change? What's actually going on here? And so we have to train ourselves to make observations consistently. And there are probably a lot of things you already observe just because of how connected music is. Like you probably recognize similarities between this song you learned and this other song you learned. But if you can actually define those connections, then you can start to tap into how to expand beyond those things. And on the guitar, these connections show themselves in different ways. So I love intervals because intervals describe distances. If you don't have perfect pitch, this is the best way to approach learning the instrument and learning the foundation behind music in general, because you can train relative pitch, you can train relativity. You can't really train perfect pitch. And just to give you an example, a lot of people think that you have to sit down and try to memorize every single note of the guitar. We know that memory is flawed. You can only hold so much in your brain. And even if you could memorize every note just based off straight memorization with no connections being made, then it's like, okay, cool, play a B flat. Awesome. Now what? Instead, if you can actually perceive these connections on the guitar, you're already filling in the reasoning why you're using those notes or those chords or whatever you're playing. So if I'm playing in the key of G, and I know where my root is or where my G is up and down the neck, and I know where all my thirds and fifths are as well, and I understand that my root, third, and fifth build the chord, then I'm simultaneously building a visual of the guitar neck while understanding how those notes can be used, because I know those notes are inside the chord. So that means when I play solos or when I'm jamming or whatever I'm doing, I probably want to focus around those notes because they're already in the chord. They're going to sound good over that chord. I'm showing you examples just to show you what I mean, but when you build all these connections and relate them visually to the guitar, they all look a certain way. And some of these shapes might be shapes you actually already know, and you just have to go in and fill in the understanding behind those shapes. Why does this look like this? Where can I actually use this? Why am I using this here? Why would I use this here and not here? So if you do this all the right way, you're essentially building a map backed by a really strong foundation and understanding. And that's when you can start to unlock all these new pathways everywhere on the guitar and simplify it in your head so that it's much easier to grasp in real time. So having a system like that is crucial. And I'll leave you with this. The best first step you can take right now is record yourself playing. Record yourself improvising if that's what you want to get better at, and go back and analyze exactly what you did and make observations about what you did. Only then can you go back and actually change things, because you'll have a reason to change them. Oh, I'm noticing that I'm doing this all the time. This is a habit. What am I actually doing here? Oh, it's just this like pentatonic lick that I always do. Well, what is actually happening in that lick? What are these notes in relation to what I'm playing over? How can you take that concept or formula and apply it somewhere else on the guitar or over a different situation? observation. If you can make just one new connection or observation every day, you're going to set yourself up for success. We get stuck in our comfort zone of doing the same things the same way over and over again, but there's a million different ways that you can look at the same thing. In terms of the actual process, I wish I could give you more just in this short video here, but there's so much to this and it has to be personalized to the individual as well. But let's do a brief recap here. First thing, there's no bar, okay? Sky's the limit, right? That's an easy one to remember. Second thing, stop being a wimp and waiting for the perfect circumstance. It's not just about time. It's about making time and taking advantage of the time you have and grabbing that bull by the horns and actually sitting down and practicing with the time you do have. Make it a habit. The third thing, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of songs or a bunch of scales, right? I'm sure you already know how to play enough already to be able to go back and actually dive deep into understanding what you're actually doing and start making those theoretical connections, understanding intervals, understanding distances and the why. Why would I use this in this context and not this context? Why do I like this and I don't like this? Take that extra step to make those observations, to analyze what you're doing and what you're learning. And if you do want mentorship, I'm dropping a link in the description where you can book a call with me or my team. We'll talk guitar, we'll talk about where you're at as a guitarist, what might be holding you back, where you want to be. And if it makes sense, I'd be happy to walk you through my program and how I help tons of guitarists just like you. Hope you enjoyed the video. A lot more to come, so subscribe, like, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.